ever-increasing amount of data out there, it's harder and harder to find what you're looking for, and impossible to know what you're missing. At Elastic, we combine the science of search with the art of AI to take you from insight to outcome faster, helping you find the answers that matter from all your data in real time, at scale, so you can build applications that harness the power of generative AI, solve IT issues with predictive analytics and workflow automation, and identify and respond to threats effortlessly. With the power of search and AI at your fingertips, it's never been easier to find answers for what's next. Welcome to ElasticON.
Please welcome Regional Vice President Sales, Erno Berkenkamp.
So good morning, everyone. So when we did the rehearsal yesterday, I jumped on stage right away. But Olivia from the events team told me, Jeroen, you turned 50 this year, so you better be careful. So I used the stairs, but I'm pretty excited about this version of ElasticON. As a kid, I really wanted to study history. But my parents said, no, you're going to do something practical. So in the end, I ended up studying economics. But this is an historic building. This is an historic venue. So for the ones that don't know, this is the old Amsterdam Stock Exchange. In fact, it were the Dutch that invented the concept of shares. So owning a small piece of ownership of a company. We're still pretty proud about that. We're also pretty proud about the fact that Elastic was born and raised in Amsterdam. So that's basically the second reason why this is an historic ElasticON, because we were born and raised as Elastic in Amsterdam, so it feels like coming home. The third reason why this is historic is that Gen AI is here. As Elastic, we embrace it, and we go beyond. In the end, AI is all about search. And one of my colleagues, when he's asked to give an elevator pitch, what does Elastic do? He always says, we are the world champions of search. And that's what it is. But also, however, on the flip side, it's my honest opinion that Gen AI is subject to inflation. So coming back to our Dutch roots, we like things to be practical and pragmatic. So that's why today you will see many examples on how to leverage our technology and go even further. That being said, we have a packed agenda with some of our most valued customers in the region, next to some of the finest elasticians that we have in the company. So bear with us. So let's hear from KPN. Erno will do the keynote right after Ash. We have SurePay, we have Odido, we have Bolt, and we have Randstad. And it's always better to have our customers talk around how they use and leverage the power of Elastic. So for now, I would like to introduce the first keynote speaker. And it's not because he's the boss of my boss, but this is a person that truly lives the Elastic source code. And for the ones that don't know, the source code means the collective set of values as we have as Elastic employees. So again, not because he's the boss of my boss, but I speak from my own experience that this person is humble, adds value in every customer conversation he's involved in, but most importantly, he's genuinely interested in people. He's genuinely interested in you. Please welcome on stage, Kulkarni, CEO of Elastic.
The clicker. What would I do without it? Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It's really awesome to be here. And it's wonderful to see the packed venue. This is absolutely lovely. like Jeroen said, this is the birthplace of Elastic. And so in a lot of ways, whenever I come to Amsterdam, I feel like this is coming home. The conversations that I have with customers is always very enlightening. I learn a lot, and hopefully the dialogue, the interactions that we have lead to better things for everybody. So, welcome. This is going to be a packed agenda, and you're going to hear more about it throughout the day. But the reason I love ElasticON events so much is because they're not just an opportunity for us to exchange information between Elastic, elasticians, and all of you, but between each other. There is so much value that comes from you having conversations with others who are using the Elastic platform to do more with Elastic. I think that is probably one of the most interesting things that you can all get from this event. So I look forward to you gaining as much as you can. But on my part, what I'm going to maybe talk a little bit about is where we've come, where we're going, and hopefully with some of the demos, really give you a sense of what the future looks like. And so that's the nature of the talk. But let's talk a little bit about where we've been. As you all know, Elastic started with the humble roots of search. We always felt that search was a wonderful, human-centric way to approach data, to find information from all the systems that we possess. And we started with full-text search, and we evolved from there. Added aggregations, added a lot around support for other data types, graphs, and so on. And it's pretty clear that we have reached a position where we can confidently say that we are the standard bearer when it comes to search. And the numbers speak for themselves. Our software has been downloaded over 4.6 billion times since the company was founded, since the project was started, Elasticsearch. You look at the community, you look at, whether you look at GitHub stars, you look at the committers, by all measure, I would say that the ecosystem is thriving, our community is robust, and the innovations that we've been driving speak for themselves in terms of the customer adoption and the user adoption. And we are very, very proud of this, because today we can very confidently say that who we are, what we have become, is a search analytics platform, helping you find answers that matter from all data in real time at scale. That's our mission. That's the journey that we are on. Now, Jeroen mentioned those words, Gen AI, generative AI. And in this time of generative AI, when there is both promise, tremendous optimism, but equally a lot of hype and skepticism, there is this fundamental question that I keep getting asked. Because when you think about the consumer world, we were so comfortable using Google or Bing or whatever search engine you're used to using, and that interface has changed on the consumer side with ChatGPT. It's no longer about you typing in a query and getting responses in terms of links and then trying to figure out which of those links really mattered, to now having a conversational experience. And so the fundamental question has always been, on the business side, does search matter anymore with generative AI? And maybe I'm biased, but I'm going to hopefully prove to you today, and the demos and all the conversations later will reinforce this, that search is probably more important than ever before. And I'll get into that. Probably the simplest way to think about it, by the way, for those of you who know our mascots, that is Elkie. And Elkie is holding up that that asteroid that was supposed to hit Earth and wipe us all out. That was, by the way, generated with some hints from DALL-E, if I'm not mistaken. So we used AI to try and figure out what's the best way to tell this message. There is a reason why search is more important than ever before. Because search becomes the foundational infrastructure technology that makes generative AI applicable for businesses. And I'll get into that in a lot more detail. Now, think about generative AI. It's pretty amazing in what it's able to do. Large language models, these models that are able to effectively infer what the next word is and the next word is and so on, are able to have entire conversations with you. Now, they do come with some challenges. I mean, there's obviously the cost aspect of it. Running a large language model on your own infrastructure is ridiculously expensive. I mean, you see these companies raising billions of dollars just so they can afford to pay the cloud bills for running their models on very expensive GPU farms. But let's take that cost problem aside and say that's fine, we'll figure out a way to solve it. Even with that, you still have some fundamental issues when you're dealing with using large language models in the context of your business. All these language models are trained on publicly available data. So if there is no way for you to connect your private business context with this large language model, these models hallucinate. They make stuff up. Because in a lot of ways, these large language models are wonderfully human, and much like human beings, we sometimes make stuff up. So do these models. So how do you make sure that you minimize the hallucinations, do things in an economic manner, and make these large language models suitable for your business applications? For that, you need something called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. Well, what is RAG? The idea here is very simple. It's about enriching your prompt, your query that's being sent to the large language model with context in real time from all your proprietary data. Figuring out from all your proprietary data what is the most relevant pieces of information that are relevant to answer that question that's been asked to the large language model. And doing that is tricky because you need to look through all of your private data and very quickly, in real time, know what is relevant. What does that sound like to you? That's exactly what search is all about. Search is about very quickly looking through all of the data that you have ingested and indexed, and then giving you the most relevant information from that data set. And Elasticsearch has proven over and over again that we are exceptional at this. This is where search engines come in. This is where Elastic comes in. We become that conduit to provide that context to your large language model so you can then have that conversational experience. And when we do this with our ESRE capability, the Elasticsearch Relevance Engine, which we launched in June earlier this year, we effectively give you three things. The first is all the developer tooling to be able to build your own generative AI applications. The second is the choice of models. We firmly believe, by the way, for those of you who are tracking the drama of OpenAI, the last 72 hours were like every 30 minutes I was looking at the news and going, what is this now? But that just tells you, irrespective of all of that drama, which will sort itself out, there are some adults in the room who are doing all the right things, but what that tells you is effectively that this is a very fast-moving situation. And innovation is happening at breakneck speed. And there is not going to be one large language model to rule them all. You are going to see amazing innovations coming out, whether it's from the hyperscalers or the big tech as they're known, or in open source. And there aren't going to be just the massive models, but there are going to be smaller domain-centric models that you'll be able to run within your own environments. The most important thing is choice. Choice for you as a user, to be able to pick the model that's right for you. And we want to make sure that we're always able to support that. So it's not just about the dev tools, it's also about the choice of models, And then lastly, it's about the enterprise-ready features. If you're not able to do things with the right support for privacy and security, this is never going to be put into production within your environments. So all of this is a key element of what we do with the Elasticsearch Relevance Engine. And as we've built this, we've made sure that we've invested in not only building out the core vector search capabilities that are part of what is needed to build these generative AI applications, but to do a lot more than that. You know, for building these applications, you need that vector search functionality. You need the ability to enable semantic search very easily. But increasingly, people are discovering that it's important to mix and match what is often known as hybrid search, to take the best capabilities from semantic search and textual search and use re-ranking to get the most optimum results, to ensure that you're able to add context as you're doing the search to provide the right information to the large language model. Context could be anything from personalization to geolocation, and we'll show some of this in the demo. But fundamentally, just like with search, even for Gen AI, context is one of the most important things that you need to provide. And the solution that we have built lets you take advantage of all of these capabilities that we've built in Elasticsearch in the last decade. And that's the beauty. That's the reason why when we built our vector search functionality, when we built the Elasticsearch Relevance Engine, we built it deep into the heart of Lucene. We didn't build it as a side-on, we built it directly into the core. And that allows us to take advantage of all of the work that's happened in the last decade. So, this is not something that we just woke up with once ChatGPT came out and said, let's do this. To the credit of the team and the community, this has been an area of active work for many, many years. Our journey with machine learning started over 9 years ago. And since then, we've been investing in this effort on a continual basis. The machine learning functionality that we built is what underpins our AIOps capabilities for observability. It is what underpins the behavioral detection models in security. And then, about 5 years ago, we made it possible for you to bring your own models onto Elastic, supervised or unsupervised, and run them on data directly in Elastic. And in 2019, that was the first time we introduced support for dense vectors. And then in June, when we came out with our Esri release, it brought all of this capability together in one single package. And since then, we've been running as fast as we can, constantly innovating. So this has been a journey. And to show you more about this, I'd like to invite onto stage my colleague, Luca Wintergerst. Luca, please.
Thank you, Ash. So Ash was talking a lot about search just now and Gen AI, but I think for some of you it might still be hard to actually understand how the two fit together and what a great combination state-of-the-art search is together with large language models. So we have a demo prepared here for the next few minutes, but we'll just walk through some of these examples and see in action how this actually looks in your business potentially. So what we have here is an internal workplace search application. You want to search your internal company documents, your SharePoint documents, your Google Drive, and anything else that you have available internally. But you don't really want to have that traditional search experience where you search for something and then you have the results and you click on the result, it opens up the PDF or whatever, and it takes you forever to actually find what you're looking for. So what we can do in here is we can just ask it a question. We can ask it, what is our work from home policy? It's just a natural language question that I could ask anyone else. And what's going to happen now is we'll search in Elasticsearch for the most relevant documents, right? Ash was saying this just now. We want to find those documents that are actually relevant to the user's question. And then we're using the power of a large language model to summarize or actually answer the user's question up here. So instead of having to open up this document and looking for the answer myself, I now get a human-readable explanation to my question that I was asking. And there's quite a bit that actually goes into this to make this happen. So let me start with a different question here. Does Elastic own my side hustle? Very different question. And what's interesting about this is here that I ask about this side hustle. So side hustle is like work on the side that I do in addition to my regular day-to-day job. This term is probably something that doesn't really appear in any of these documents. We don't have an internal document that talks about side hustles. It talks about, work that you do in addition to your day-to-day job. But using semantic search, using vector search, we're able to interpret this user's question and still find the most relevant documents that are able to answer the user's question in this case. And this is what makes this great, right? You can ask it questions and you still get the perfect answer. Now, Ash was also talking about the hallucinations. He was talking about how large language models are trained on public data. So let's use a different example here. If I ask it, what is NASA? If I asked anyone in the room here right now, I think everybody could give me a good answer for what it means. If I ask ChatGPT the same question, I would also get an answer what it means. But in the context of Elastic, in the context of our private business data that we have, the answer is a very different one than the one that you might expect. For us, it's the North America and South America sales region. It's a very different term in the company's topic. So again, this context that we pull in here from these search results, from these documents, is really, really important. By the way, we also briefly touched on the drama with OpenAI and everything. All of this obviously works with any other large language model as well. So in this case, it really doesn't matter if you're using OpenAI, Bedrock, Google Vertex, one of the open source models. That all works just fine. So lastly, I do want to ask it one final question. And this question is, how does compensation work? Maybe I'm looking for a promotion or a raise, so I'll just ask it this question here. And you can see I'm logged in as an engineer. The system is now telling me that it doesn't know. It can't answer that question because it doesn't have any relevant documents that it found in this case. And this is the last point that Ash was touching on just now with these enterprise-grade features. What we've built here is not just some kind of a quick add-on on top of Elasticsearch that's quickly patched in. This is actually deeply integrated into Elasticsearch, so the same role-based access control, document-level security, that all still exists in this context as well. So if I just switch my role over here and log in as a manager and ask the same question again, I now have access to the most relevant documents because I now have a higher level of privileges. I can find the relevant information, and I can answer the question using search. And that's it. Thank you.
What was interesting about what Luca just said, what showed, there are so many things in there that I think were very instructive. If you saw, not only did the response from the LLM get created, to the query with all the context, but you could see the documents as you were showing the demo, the documents below that Elasticsearch had surfaced that were relevant to that question and sent to the large language model. In the work that we do today, a lot of customers want to know, hey, how can I know exactly what the provenance of this information was? How did this response get created? Can I trace back to the data that was used to generate these responses? Think about those aspects that become very important in the real world, in the real business context. You can see and show all of that with this RAG model, with this idea of retrieval augmented generation. You saw document level permissions. There was so much richness in what Luca demonstrated. And all of that data is just data that we can suck in with all our connectors. So that's the beauty of using Elastic for building these generative AI applications. So that brings us to the question, what kinds of generative AI applications are you building in your organizations? And we've been working with hundreds of customers at this point in production, building applications. Many of them have spoken together with Elastic on the kinds of work that they have done, building these Gen AI applications. I've seen all kinds of patterns, and these are just some of the examples, but probably the place where everybody is getting started first is in terms of customer support. How can you make your customer support more efficient? How can you make it a better experience for your customers? Because at the end of the day, we've all had that experience where we have an issue with a particular product or need some questions answered. You try over the traditional chat bot, and then you pick up the phone and call somebody. That experience is a wait kind of experience where you're waiting for a long time. If you turn that into a more intelligent conversation that's automated by building a generative AI chat experience, imagine what that does for you. Imagine what that does from an efficiency standpoint for the business and how it improves the overall customer experience for your end customers. We're seeing a lot of progress being made by businesses in that area. We're seeing a lot being done in e-commerce. Like one of the most interesting use cases I heard, I was in India about a month ago, and one of our customers there, they do a lot of, basically their main market is mid-tier market, small and mid-sized cities. And what they want to do is almost have almost a personal shopper kind of experience where, instead of you saying, oh, I want to buy a suit for a wedding, you should be able to go and really point to the URL of a photograph of your favorite movie star or your favorite cricketer. Cricket's a big thing in India, as many of you know. We lost the World Cup final, which sucks, but that's such is life. Any Australians in the audience? Damn, man, come on. But anyways, congratulations. It was, coming back to this customer, their idea was really interesting. They want to make it possible for the users who all use mobile phones to go online, look at the picture of a cricketer and just click on it and say, I want something that looks like what this person is wearing. Now imagine what that requires. That requires you to ingest in that image, run it through a model that's able to identify the kind of outfit that that person is wearing, and then use retrieval augmented generation to look within your inventory and say, what do I have that most closely matches what this person is looking for? All with that simple experience, right? Where nobody has to specify that it's a three-piece suit or whatever. Like that's a wonderful, wonderful experience. And those are the kinds of possibilities that people are actively working on, that people are putting into limited production. Just the amount of innovation in this area is amazing. That brings me to my first ask to all of you. If you haven't downloaded the ElasticON application, my ask to you is please download it. And I would love to hear from all of you. In Frankfurt, we had the ElasticON in Frankfurt 2 weeks ago, and we had 160 responses. I would love to see Amsterdam do better. We learn, and we'll make this information available to you, and when you are in the breakout sessions later, that will become opportunities for you to collaborate and chat with others who have similar ideas and similar interests. So my ask is, in the next hour or so, if you can get onto your application and enter in information on what is it that you're working in within your organization, that would be incredibly valuable to you, to your colleagues sitting here, and that'll help us interact and coordinate these things better. We are seeing this across the globe. Cisco, they are a customer of ours, and they built their customer support portal that they are now completely revamping, making it a more generative AI application experience. They built that with Elastic. And one of their engineers who was responsible, the key architect who was responsible for building this, came and presented at the first ElasticON that we did about a month and a half, 2 months ago in San Francisco. It was wonderful to see what they have done, and he got into the gory details of what they have built. Relativity. This is a legal e-discovery application that they've built. They've built, again, entirely using Elasticsearch, using semantic search. Because when it comes to e-discovery, they want to search for, based on the meaning that they're looking for. Not textual search, but actual meaning of the kinds of concepts that they're interested in finding legal documents for. So much innovation happening in this area. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, what's next for search? For us, we've been investing in the core fundamentals of this area for a while. But as we look ahead, our goal is to do 2 things. One, to give you the best possible experience for building these generative AI applications powered by search. And second, to make it easy. So developer focus is, again, a very key part of everything that we're going to do. So 3 aspects to this, 3 focus areas. First, make Lucene absolutely the best vector database out there. And I'm being very specific here. I didn't say Elasticsearch, I said Lucene. We believe that if we do this in the core, it is going to make everything that sits on top of it that much better. So we are going to focus on contributing a lot of this into Lucene itself. If that's the right place to do it, we're going to do it there. The second thing, we're going to make Elasticsearch the best at semantic search and at retrieval augmented generation. For semantic search, we released our sparse encoder model, ELSA, and we just came out with Model 2, and it's now generally available. It was in beta, but we already had literally hundreds of customers working with it, and it's gotten better with Model 2. We're very, very excited about it. We've done a lot with vector search and so on, but there's so much more coming. The result re-ranking that I talked about, the inference API, which is going to be really all about developer simplicity, making it easy for you to build these Gen AI applications. All of this is part of our effort to make Elasticsearch the best platform, irrespective of what model you want to use for retrieval augmented generation. And then the third part is to make Elastic the most open member of this ecosystem. This ecosystem is evolving at a breakneck speed. And whether it's partnering with the companies that are building frameworks like LangChain, or those that are repositories for models like Hugging Face, or with all the other model providers out there. It's not just OpenAI, like all of you know. Like Luca mentioned, whether it's Bedrock or Vertex AI from Google, Bedrock from AWS, Llama 2 from Meta. Like, there's so much out there. And there's work going on in open source that I believe is going to be extremely exciting as well. All of this is part of our effort to make it possible for you to have unprecedented choice. That's what this is all about. Because when search powers AI, then everything becomes that much more relevant to your business. It all comes back to that idea of relevance. Now, we do more than just search, as you all know. Many of you use us for security, many of you use us for observability. And we've been in those spaces because we fundamentally believe that observability and security are often best addressed with search. When search powers observability and security, you get better outcomes. So how does everything that we are doing in Gen AI help you with observability and security? Well, we think that it helps you in 3 ways. Because if you think about, you break down the problems in observability and security, you can break them down into these 3 fundamental steps. First, the diagnosis, the detection rather. How do you detect the issue? Like, take observability as an example. Trying to detect what is going on that might be causing your application to slow down. You need to first have a detection that something's off. It could be an error in a log file. It could be some metric that you're getting from your infrastructure. Whatever it is that lets you understand that there is a problem. And AI ops, machine learning, using machine learning for this, is a lot about exactly that. It's about detection. The next step is diagnosis, understanding the root cause. That requires often a lot of correlations. But understanding how do you get to that diagnosis fast, you're going to see some of that with our AI assistants. The AI assistants that we made available not that long ago, earlier this year. And that's all about making it easy for you to get to that stage of diagnosis. And then lastly, it's remediation. And that, I believe, is where we are going to get to. Whether it's for observability or security, making it easy for you to get to a point of remediation in the fastest way and the most optimum way possible. Because when you use search, you fundamentally get to outcomes faster. So, this brings me to my next quirky image. How? Well, let's talk about the how. It all starts with having the right signals, having the right data. Let's talk about observability for a second. Most of you probably started with Elastic with log analytics. Being able to look at your logs and see an error message in there and say, okay, there's an issue. Well, what does that mean? What do I do about that particular error message? Oftentimes, you need to then correlate it with something more. That could be metrics. Looking at the particular container, the VM, where that service was running, and then trying to see what the CPU utilization looks like, what the memory utilization looks like. Is there anything in terms of infrastructure metrics that is helping you get a better sense of what the problem might be? Oftentimes that's not enough, and you need to then go to your application traces to look at the end-to-end distributed traces and see what specifically in your entire application stack might have been the place where that particular error emanated from. Oftentimes, even that's not enough. And that's one of the reasons why we introduced continuous profiling, which is now generally available. Continuous profiling is just amazing. If you haven't looked at it, I'd highly encourage you to take a look. It's this idea of being able to get visibility without any application restarts, without any instrumentation of your application. It's pretty amazing to be able to get visibility all the way to your stack level information, the profiles, to see exactly what was going on at a method call level. That's really cool. And then we also introduced synthetic monitoring, the ability for you not only to do all of this detection work, but to be able to do testing. The entire user journey, all the way from the user client through the web to the back end. To be able to do that using synthetic workloads that you can deploy on Elastic Cloud anywhere. That is an end-to-end picture. When you look at security, the story is not that different, because often security and observability tend to be, two sides of the same coin. I can't tell you how many people I meet that they are discovering or have already discovered that the data that their observability team is capturing is often the same data that their security team is also capturing. So why do you want to duplicate it? Can we be more efficient in how we use it? But it's often the same information. In security, you're just applying different kinds of algorithms on that same data. You're getting your network logs, you're getting your application logs, your access management logs, your web logs, and you're trying to look for patterns. You're trying to look for malware. You're trying to see if there's any behavioral detection rules that are getting triggered because there's something weird. Ash never logs into this application. In the last 24 hours, he's logged into that application 8 times and exfiltrated 20 megs of data. Well, that should trigger some kind of message, some error, some alert to somebody to do something about it. It's not only about detecting, but then it's about actually taking some actions on the endpoint. Can we isolate that host? Can we use OS query to do more inspection on that host on exactly what happened? And we've gone beyond that more recently to also deliver functionality in the cloud with cloud security. So now you have cloud security posture management for both AWS and most recently even Google. And we are working on the same for Azure. Already you have this for AWS and GCP now. So you get a full picture of your entire threat landscape, all your assets in one place. And we also have integrations with Wiz and with Palo Alto Prisma, so you can bring all of that information into Elastic and see that end-to-end picture. It's extremely compelling. But it's not just about having the right signals and being able to correlate them. to be able to correlate them, you also need a common data schema. This is where Elastic Common Schema comes in. And for those of you who haven't been tracking it, earlier this year in May, we contributed the Elastic Common Schema to CNCF for logs, for their open telemetry project. Now, there hasn't been a common schema for logs out there, and that has been a challenge. Because without something that everybody can align around, it just means that every time you choose to switch a platform, it becomes a pretty expensive and complicated effort for you. So by contributing to CNCF for the Open Telemetry project for logs, our commitment to being open hopefully comes through. We want to earn the right to be your platform through our innovation, through how we take care of you in terms of the relationship, not because you're locked into our technology and you don't have any choice. That's not the right way to do this. We want to make it possible for you to switch onto Elastic, but also away from Elastic if we don't do our job right. But for that, there has to be a common schema, and that's the reason why we contributed it. We believe it's the right answer for the long term, for all of you and for us, for the market. At the same time, we have been working incredibly hard to make it possible for developers to be able to interact with our system in easier ways than ever before. We recently made ESQL, or Elasticsearch Query Language, available. Elasticsearch Query Language is a piped query language that allows you to pipe the outcome of one stage to become the input of the next stage. It's incredibly developer friendly because you can build these very iterative queries that you can keep running and seeing the output of it, and that's how developers like to work. And we heard this feedback over and over again, and now this is available to you. So if you haven't had a chance to check this out, I'd highly encourage you to take a look. And I believe there are going to be sessions and discussions on this topic later today. And it's all tied together with AI. I've talked about this earlier. I mentioned our AI assistants. Well, I think the best way to show something is to actually do a demo. And hopefully all of you will agree. So let me invite Luca back on stage. All right, show us what you've got.
Thanks again. Let's just remove this. There we go. So I have 2 additional demos prepared here, one for security, one for observability. Before I start, though, a quick note. Everything that we have shown before, and also everything that I'm about to show, is actually something that you can use today when using Elastic. So if you go to Elastic Cloud today, this is available to you. This is not some future thing that we're working on right now. This is actually available to all of our users and customers. Before we start with the security demo, I did want to ask all of you real quick show of hands here, who in here is not an expert in security? Who's not an expert security analyst? Quick show of hands here. That's a lot of people, right? And that's what we see commonly across most of our customers as well. There's only so many people that you can hire as a company that are experts, especially in this market today. It's getting harder and harder to find good people as well. So the assistant, one of its aims is to just enable people and make them better at using our products and better at investigating these threats. So what we're going to do here is we will actually together investigate something that's happening in a system and hopefully try to understand what's happening and how our system has been infected. So we're looking at the alerts overview here in Kibana. This is the typical screen where the average security analyst would spend most of their time. They're just looking at the alerts, and their job is to make sense of all of this information. They need to figure out if any of these alerts down here are problematic, if there's any additional investigation that needs to be done, if this is a threat to the company. So what we're going to do is we'll just filter this down by one of the hosts here, so we're left with only 3 alerts, and then we can start inspecting some of these. And there's lots and lots of metadata to go with each alert here. So we have one here, suspicious MS Office child process. Okay, that's interesting, and there's a bunch of stuff over here. Good. Let's look at the next one. Kind of the same thing, suspicious cert util commands. If you're not an expert, you probably don't know what any of this means, or at least what most of this means. I guess you can still understand that MS Office refers to Microsoft Office, but it's hard to interpret all of this data. It's hard to do this investigation, and quite frankly, even if you are an expert, maybe you're encountering something here that you just haven't seen before in your career. So what we can do is we can just inspect one of these alerts here, and then use the assistant to help us out. Because again, there's just so much to go on here, and it would take me a long time to make sense of all of this. So we'll pull up the assistant real quick. And the way the security assistant works here is it helps us to make sense of the data. It helps us to summarize the alert, to come up with next steps, to tell us what we should now be doing in this situation. If you're a little bit familiar with large language models, you might know that the prompt that you send to a large language model is really important. So the question, the thing that you send it, is really important because the more elaborate you are, the better that prompt is, the better the response is also that the model gives you back. And we've done all of this heavy lifting for you. So we give you pre-filled prompts for things like alert summarization, workflow suggestions, query conversion, and so on and so forth. You just click a button, we take care of the rest. And all of the things we mentioned earlier today with the context and us finding the most relevant things, what we do under the hood here is we take all of that information from Elastic Security, this alert as well as some other additional information, and use all of this to provide the large language model with everything that it needs to answer this question. So if I just send this off here and give it a few seconds to load, we can first of all see all of the things that we now sent it. So we prompt it, we ask it, hey, how can we investigate this? Can you help us out here? And we give it lots and lots of data to go with this. And once this loads, it's a little bit small on the screen. It's a little bit narrow, but that's just because we had to increase the font size here a bit. So bear with me as I scroll through this. It gives us a list of recommended actions. It tells us, first do this, then do this, next do this. So it's really easy for me, even if I'm not an expert, to just follow these steps, follow along what I should be doing in this particular case for this MS Office child process. In addition, the assistant also understands our product. It understands the tools that Elastic has available to deal with threats like these. It understands that, for example, Elastic has an OS query integration, so we can actually run a query here that it gives us on the host to check if there might be additional child processes running on that host. And that, again, makes it really easy for us to just interact with the system. Finally, it gives us additional triage steps, which we might be able to do as well if we really want to continue this investigation. If you have follow-up questions now, you can just, again, type in here, and let's maybe ask it about cert util. So how might an attacker leverage this cert util thing in this context? And we also want to hear a bit about the past. How was this leveraged in the past as well across some other companies? So if we just run this real quick and then look at the response, what the assistant is now telling us, again in human-readable language, is first of all what cert util is, how it's commonly used in attacks like these, how the steps usually take place when cert util is executed. And then finally, it also ends with these real-world examples. So we have some actionable data here that really tells us how this was also used in the past to really make that case that this is definitely something we need to look into more. And then finally, just a quick different thing here, what the assistant can also do for us. I'm from Germany, and in Germany, the German language is still very, very popular in the office. So if I come to work tomorrow morning and my boss asks me, hey, what's the deal with that malware alert? Can you write me a quick report, give me a quick summary of what happened here? I can just ask the assistant to please do this in German, and it's just going to do the same thing again, but this time it's going to use the German language. So I can just copy and paste this into my reporting solution or whatever else I might need and give this to my boss. So it's a huge time saver. If you're a beginner, it's really going to elevate your capabilities, make you much more proficient with everything. And if you're already an expert, it just saves you from all of the boring typing work, summarizing things, coming up with quick diagrams, and all of this as well. So it's really, really powerful and really capable. So that's it for security. Before I forget though, we will have a dedicated session for both security and for observability and for search this afternoon, where we'll go much, much, much deeper into all of these scenarios. So we'll demo the assistants again. We'll also demo some of the search capabilities again later today. So make sure to stick around for the rest of the day as well. With that said, let's now transition over into observability. In the observability space, we'll kind of remove our security analyst hat and pretend that we're an SRE now. We're a site reliability engineer. We just got alerted. It's the middle of the night. We need to get up and fix whatever's happening here. And as we can tell, we just got alerted to something. We have one alert that triggers here. We have more log entries in the system than usual. It's a very generic alert. More log events than usual. Could be good, could be bad. We'll see in a second here what it all means. Analyzing something like this traditionally in a traditional system for log monitoring is really, really tedious and time-consuming. You can see here we have this spike here of log data, and as the page is loading, you can see that the spike is obviously quite easy to tell here, but the question is, what caused this? These logs, they must be coming from somewhere, right? Some pod, some container, some host, some cloud region probably emitted these logs, and we stored them in the system. So what we're able to do using AIOps capabilities is we're able to run some statistical analysis on this metadata and quickly figure out what contributed to this spike in traffic. And what we're able to find here is that certain fields, such as the username and the database name, heavily contributed to the spike. So all of the log messages in the spike, or at least a large part of them, had the value pgbench in them. Someone, or some of you in here might already know what pgbench is, but again, maybe you don't. Maybe you're on call for a different team. You need to figure out what's going on here for a system that you're not usually responsible for. And that's where we have the assistant again. So with the click of a button down here, the assistant will once again, similar to the case with security, look at the data on the screen. We provided that context, that internal context, and it reasons for us what all of this could mean, and it comes up with a human-readable explanation why pgbench is running here, what we should do next to resolve this situation. And what I can also do now, in case I'm not quite happy with that response, or if I want to follow up on this again, is I can just start a chat with the assistant. I can ask it follow-up questions as well. So what I'm going to do here is let's just ask it, what's pgbench, and should pgbench be running in my production environment? Okay, we'll just pretend that we don't know anything about pgbench right now. And if I send this off, and we look at the response here, the assistant will now give us a very general answer about pgbench. I could have asked the same question to ChatGPT. pgbench is a benchmarking tool for Postgres. That's public knowledge. The LLM was trained on this. So we can ask it questions like these too, but again, it's a time saver. It saves us time from having to go to Google and Stack Overflow and figure out what all of this actually means. And now we get into the fun stuff. So next up, we're going to ask it, did this incident have any impact on my revenue on this particular day when it happened? Now, this is obviously a question that ChatGPT is not able to answer because ChatGPT doesn't know anything about my business KPI, and revenue is really just any business KPI that you have in your system. So what's going to happen here if I send this off is that the assistant will now go back and forth with the large language model and fetch additional information. So since the model is not able to answer the question, we execute additional functions in our system to fetch additional information, such as the list of APM services that we have, or some time series data for these services. So if we now look at the response, it's able to automatically draw some charts here, in this case, the throughput for the checkout service, as well as the failure rate of the checkout service, because it reasoned that if I ask for revenue impact, that maybe the service checkout is probably related to my revenue. And it's doing all of this on its own. I didn't have to specifically tell it any of this. Finally, it also gives me a human-readable answer again as well. So as a last step, similar to the example before, I might come into the office tomorrow morning, and again, my boss asks me, hey, what's the deal with that incident? Did it really impact our revenue? How much money did we lose because the system was down? So I can just ask the assistant, hey, can you visualize my revenue data for June 7 as well? And similar to before, we do kind of the same thing. We just go back and forth, execute some additional functions to fetch additional data, and then eventually just draw this lens chart in the assistant here, where we can see our revenue and we can see this dip. Again, revenue is just a synonym for any business KPI that you have. You could be visualizing your CPU usage, you could be visualizing the number of transactions. The assistant can do lots of these tasks for you, and it's really powerful as well. So the observability assistant, it has access to all of the data, it has access to all of the APIs, it can visualize it and investigate root causes on its own if you just tell it to do this. And I hope that I could show you that these assistants are tremendously useful. Again, we'll have dedicated sessions again later today to go a little bit deeper into each of them and learn a bit more about how they actually work under the hood. So make sure to really stick around until the end of the day. And that's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Awesome. So a lot in those assistants, and as Luca mentioned, we're going to have sessions where you can deep dive into this. If those of you who are really interested in the vector search components and really looking at what we are doing to improve the performance and make vector search with Lucene incredibly powerful, there's a session by Jim Frenzy, who is our tech lead for search, and that's also going to be super exciting. So do attend whatever makes sense for you. Now, just stepping back a little bit, from Elastic standpoint, the way we look at it is incredibly important that we give you choice, not just in the kinds of models and the types of data that you're bringing in. It's also incredibly important for us to enable you to run all of this in a way that is most suitable for your business needs. So today, Elastic Cloud is supported on many, many regions all around the world on the 3 major hyperscalers. We also, through things like cross-cluster search and cross-cluster replication, make it possible for you to support hybrid environments. And we have literally hundreds of customers that are using these capabilities in such a way that they have certain deployments in their own data centers, other deployments in different cloud regions, and they are creating a virtual federated data system that allows them to search across all of these in a very transparent way. And having the right kind of data security and data privileges where certain users are not, users from here are not able to see the data there, but the other way around it's possible, just based on the kinds of privileges that you create and set up. That is incredibly powerful. Now, from an architecture standpoint, we aren't stopping there. Although we know that the current Elastic Cloud model is incredibly powerful, and a lot of our customers who are using us, either in self-managed mode on their own data centers, are gradually moving to cloud as that becomes more and more relevant for them. But we are also committed to continually re-innovating from the core. When Elasticsearch was first written, there wasn't truly a stable and high-performance distributed file system in a way that could be used at cloud scale, at web scale. At that point in time, S3 did not support really good read-after-write semantics. It did not have the same high availability that it does today. Well, things are different, right? So when Elasticsearch was first written, you had this model that every node was doing the ingestion, indexing, and it's also supporting the query. And that's why you needed to figure out how many shards you needed to have, like in balance across all of it. Now, Elasticsearch does that very well, and we are able to scale incredibly well across literally tens of thousands of nodes. We have customers who have many tens and in certain cases over 100 petabytes of data in their environment that they're managing with Elastic, managing on Elastic. But we want to make this even simpler. And where you will see more from us in this area is in the area of stateless Elasticsearch, or what eventually will become our serverless offering. And in this, effectively we use this idea that all the data, as it's ingested, gets indexed and stored directly on S3 or S3 compliant object store. And then the actual search, the query response, that query service is almost like a cache. And that makes it possible for you to say goodbye forever to the idea of shards. And for those of you who really love that idea of, I want to be able to manage the shards myself, well, you'll always have Elastic Cloud, and that'll always be available to you. But if you want even greater simplicity, the serverless offering will be very, very interesting. We have just opened the doors on a private gated preview with customers on this. And in the next several months, we will get to a point where it's in public preview, and so on and so forth. So I'm very excited personally about where we are going with this. In summary, this is what I'll leave you with. As you look to Elastic today and tomorrow, search is absolutely a critical part of the infrastructure for generative AI. And as you look to build generative AI applications yourself within your business, do know that there is a lot that you can do with the investments that you've already made in Elastic, and we are here to help you. Second, search-powered AI is having a huge impact on observability and security. And there's no better way to experience this than to spend some time with the AI assistants. Play with them yourself, sit down with our experts today, learn more. The third thing, our commitment to being open remains strong. The partnerships that we are constantly building, the flexibility that we are giving you, the contributions that we are making to the community, whether it is the common schema to CNCF, or the fact that we are doing all this innovation in Lucene itself to make Lucene the best vector database out there, all of this is just more proof of our openness. This is the best time for us to do more together. So we are here and happy to work with you in whatever way you want us to. So with that, what I will say is enjoy the rest of the conference. There's a lot of great material that is going to be shared in the various tracks, and I encourage you to really make the most of it. And with that, I'd now like to invite onto stage Erno Doorenspleet. Hopefully I got that right, Erno. Please, you can beat me up later if I got it wrong. But Erno is from KPN, and I'd like to invite him to the stage. Erno has more than 20 years of experience in the field of cybersecurity, and he will be talking about the future of AI, how it's not just a technology, but a fundamental cornerstone in changing and reshaping our industries and our lives for the better. So with that, Erno, please.
So good morning. I think that was a great opening speech, and I will take you to my world of, AI, KPN, and security. And I'm really like a security guy, and people that know me are really aware of things in this world are changing rapidly. And the cool thing is, look at these two guys, or girls, you never know. This is basically a CEO and a CISO. They're in this open field, right? You all have been to school. Open field, an umbrella. Most of the umbrellas are provided by vendors, right? So they're not mostly they are like a bit expensive because they have like the metal tip on top. And you know what will happen, right? Is there a chance that you will be hit by lightning? What do you think? Yeah, right. In typical Dutch weather, there is a lot of rain lately. So there they are, a CEO and a CISO, in the open field, with limited tools. And what you don't see, basically, is the rest of the management team standing here, looking at those two persons and saying, what's the risk being hit by lightning? You got a limited budget. This is what you have. Have fun. And the thing is, the chance that you will be hit by lightning is 1 on 500,000. Depending which AI system you ask, right? Because depending on the country, you will get different answers. That's the fun part. So 1 in 500,000. So what's the chance that you will be hit by ransomware? Because the thing is, there they are. Limited tools. Maybe not the insights they want. Maybe they didn't use the right tools. They don't have the insights. Well, the thing is, that's the number is 1 to 5. On average. And the thing is, if you really dive into the data, and I think that's the cool thing, if you dive into the data, if you look at the top 3, if you are hit, the top 3, likely be like Black Cat or Hive or, And I really encourage you, just read the latest report of the Elastic Security Labs, because there's a lot of insights in there I just showed you the top 3, right? But there's a top 10, and if you really dive into what's happening, those 2 guys or girls should be aware. Because, can happen. It's a bit, your data is going somewhere, right? Apparently in the cloud or something. And then there's that management team again, looking like, okay, where are they? Because they were hit by the ransomware. Data is somewhere. I think in the Netherlands we had some great examples where, these kind of things happen. I think if you're a football fan, you know who had a little challenge in that area when data was available. So what you do? You fire those 2 guys, right? Or girls. Just fire them. Get rid of them. They did a lousy job. They didn't have the right tools, so get rid of them. And what you do then is put another 2 persons in there again, in the same open field, and saying, here we are the management team, what's the risk? So how many of you do recognize these kind of situations in companies? Like you just fire the guy or girl and say, you're lousy. You don't get extra budget, do your job. And that's the cool thing. If you now look on the internet, there's a lot of CISO roles available. And the first thing you should ask, was my predecessor hit by lightning? Because the thing is, chances are they were. So you need to understand, when you're responsible for cybersecurity, your insights, your data, what is where, do you know what your people are doing? Because at the end, you are responsible. We are responsible. And don't come up with a lousy phrase like, yeah, but people are the weakest link. Yeah, right. If that's the case, why don't we have the right tools to help them? Because at the end, tools should be able to help us out in this, terrible, terrible environment. And also a fun environment. So just a little bit about KPN, just to give you an example why for us it's important to look at cybersecurity. Our connectivity is there. We have the goal to push our connectivity, our fiber connectivity around the Netherlands in a really quick way, but it needs to be secure. So for us, that's also an important component. And just to give you a little numbers, we work with around 10,000 people. You can imagine how many devices we have in our company. If you have a geek like me, I got like 4 devices connected to the KPN network. And if I install some little crazy thing on there, I got an email, I just received last week an email like, there is some tool on your laptop, please remove it. So you need to be aware of what people are doing. And what we do also as well is making sure, and that's for us really, really, really important to look at climate. Because you all want connectivity, you all Google. You all check out the latest data. It's all running through our lines, through our data centers. And we need to make sure that we look at the climate as well to keep that in an acceptable way. And I think with all the elections coming up, I think that's a lot of discussion going on climate as well. But this is all about KPN. Then the question is, of course, AI. KPN and AI? Yes. We do a lot of stuff with AI. The thing, though, is people are talking about AI in KPN a lot. The thing, though, is what kind of AI do we talk about? What is AI for us? Well, for us, we basically look at 2 things. The relevant ones and what I call the generic or general one. So general, you all know, right? You're here because you are, experts in a lot of fields of technology. So you know that the generic AI is like the simple things, right? A bit of the chat things are in there, the the simple things. It's there for the long time. And then, of course, we've got what I call relevant AI, the things where we really go into the human, almost like the human style of looking at things, like you saw in the demo, right? You get the right answers back, or maybe not always, but I will come back to it a bit later. So that's really important, that you look at how these things are changing. If you go back in time, you know, I'm coming from IBM, you know, Watson was like, Watson, it's like 7, 8 years ago. Look where we are today. So AI is really relevant for us, looking at, you know, how smooth we can change things, but also use it in a wise manner. And I will come back to the ethical part of this as well, because it is rapidly evolving, right? You see how quickly now ChatGPT is there and other stuff that's closely and quickly going through, basically almost changing our lives. Almost, because that's up to you. If you were looking at AI and then go back to the CEO and the CISO that you saw, I think by using the right tools and a bit of AI, maybe they could have been prevented by hit by lightning. Maybe. Maybe not. But that's how we want to look at it. Can it help us and the companies to be better in security? To get a better understanding on how to act on it? Because when the question was asked, how many of you are security expert? Not many hands went up, which for me in the security world is like, oh, okay, you know, it's difficult to get the right people. So the threats are still there, right? And for me, looking at the threats, they remain and they're becoming better and better and better. And I really encourage you to look at the, I think it's the October report. There's an October report from the Elastic lab. They really dove into a number of components. And I went through it a couple of days ago, and I thought, I want to share like 3 components of it, which I think are really relevant in how things are evolving in the last couple of months. And the first one that I really want to give you as an example is, how do we look at malware? Malware as a service. And you think like, malware as a service? Oh yes, that's there for a long time. But it's becoming better and better and better. You can take basically a service where you have gold, silver, and bronze as a service model. So I can go online, buy for a couple of dollars a piece of malware, and if it is successful, okay, I pay a certain amount of money. If it's not, or is less successful, I can drop a complaint. And even have a service line available if my malware is not working as expected. So, and this is growing and becoming more and more relevant, also due to the fact that AI is helping creating these kind of malware. The other thing that I think is really, really important to understand is that we see that hackers are really comfortable going through your systems. Because what we discovered, and also in some other reports, an average hacker is how many days in your system? More than a year before you notice it. So they're really comfortable. They're not worried. You don't see them. That's why the CISO and CEO were hit. You don't see them. They're just easy, are there, just doing the things they need to do. So that's really important. They feel comfortable. Maybe they're a bit arrogant even. And the other thing is, what I see is in the systems. People are thinking like, I got a MacBook. I got Mac OS. That's fine. I don't need to do anything. It's the most safest environments there. We see growth in that area as well. And if you are a Apple user, you see more and more updates coming through. And we see a growth in that space. So be aware. It's not only what we call the Windows environment. It's all over the place, and it's growing quickly because the tools are getting better and better to create also for those environments, nasty software. So for us, it's basically, the report states like 10 takeaways. So look at those 10. I think it's really, really good to look at those. And those were based on questions also to the CISO. It's you know, the answers from the community. And that's really important to understand what your peers are doing and how they look at, you know, the threats that are out there. So I really encourage you to look at that global report. It really gives you inspiration. So, is AI really transforming cybersecurity? Well, I think it is. I think it is. Because there are, you know, components out there where I really believe that it is transforming today already. The thing is, we look at these types of AI-driven solutions. Threat detection and prevention. I think we now are able to really leverage AI systems by, you know, looking at large data sets, the methods that we can now use to really identify in the environments, you know, the real potential breaches. Because we can now go through the data more quicker, more comprehensive. Behavior analytics, I think we spoke about it as well. Behavior analytics, really important component today on how we are looking at our behavior in the system. Are we doing the right things? Are we moving data around? Yes or no? And is it normal that we move that data around? Is it normal that certain, you know, applications are using that data? And we see there a really good improvement on, you know, the way we look at the data. Automation. It can really automate a lot. The thing though is, people are scared. How many of you are using really automation already in your environments for security by automatically, you know, disconnecting systems? Are people, you know, do you dare to do that? Just a few. Most of the companies are really afraid to do that because you never know what you're going to disconnect. Will it disrupt your business? Will it give that dip in your sales because you're disconnecting certain systems? So automation is a positive thing. It can quickly discover things, but people are reluctant because it's not that stable as people, you know, hope they are. And I think on predictive analysis, I think there we're making bigger and bigger steps. It's not there yet, but you know, we're getting there. And the cool thing is user authentication. How many passwords do we have today? Sometimes it drives me nuts. Sometimes it's like, how many, you know, I got password managers, you got all the kind of stuff, you know, and it should be easier, right? The thing though is we're already using AI in a really cool thing, right? So basically when you open your phone or your Windows machine, when it looks at your face, it's using AI. So we have a lot of AI already in user authentication, but it can be better, it can be quicker, and it can help us out to make sure that we have less interruptions when it comes to user authentication. And threat intel and also security operations is really important. How many people in the audience, you know, update their runbooks for if there is a breach on monthly basis? I just try to do monthly basis. More than a month, okay, one, oh my goodness. Hopefully, if I say weekly basis, no, that's what I'm afraid of. Monthly is a good one. The thing is, can we use AI to look at our runbooks? And if we have changes in the back end of our systems, should AI be able to spot those things, automatically change the runbooks, and make sure that the runbooks are relevant today and tomorrow, instead of, oh yeah, it was like 6 months ago. Now I have a breach and my runbook doesn't, you know, match my current environment anymore because I made so many changes and I can't cope with all those changes. So making sure that we use systems in that way could make our lives much easier. And also, you know, in the really incident response way, we can quickly now dive into more data and quicker response. And we're looking in all those kind of components to really drive that as a goal to be more and more you know, quicker in how we look at our security environments. Because it's going quick. We have a lot of you know, nasty people out there that are trying to breach our environments. And And then, this is what I really see happening lately, and I don't know if you are aware, it's bot versus bot. We see really sophisticated attacks. And it's automated. It's automated. It cannot be true that a human is doing this. This is really, and we proved it, that there are a lot of machine learning systems attacking our environments. And that's normal because we use it to defend. We use the same systems to look at our environments, see if there are anomalies in there, and see if there are challenges in our environments. Those same systems are used today to attack us. And those attacks are so, quick that we need to put on the other side an AI system as well. And then you can say, well, is that only in cybersecurity? No, we see a lot of these systems also now in trading. So in the financial industry, we see a lot of trading done also by bots. Looking at data in the financial industry, how much data is coming in, changing in market environments, and then quickly do trades. So it's not only in cyber, it's also in the financial industry where you see bots versus bots. And it's a good thing because it could help, but you need to be aware that also, hackers are using these kind of systems and tools to make our lives, challenging. The thing, though, is, do we really understand what we're doing when it comes to AI? And to my knowledge, sometimes we just don't. We don't have a clue. We just use the tools because it's easy. And, I really look into some of the, more ethical part of AI, which is not always easy. And the first one I really hope that you all, agree with me is, the ethical consideration when it comes to bias and it comes to really, do we train it without being, looking at discrimination around the world, getting the right outcome? Do we really understand what we're doing with the data and how we give, the system the opportunity to create the answer for us? Is that the correct answer? Is that, the answer that we think that the community should allow? So that's something that is really, really, really a tough one. And the other thing is privacy. I just spoke about, behavioral analytics. But what about your privacy? Is your behavior in the environment of your company or your behavior on sites or websites or whatever, what can I and can I not do with that data? And that's a fine line between privacy, security, and using that data to serve you in a better way when it comes to all the components that I want to sell to you. So how do you leverage that AI when it comes to privacy? I think it's an important one to really look at and take into consideration how you want to leverage it. And then there is something that I think is really important, is transparency. If you use it, are you able to explain to you, to me, how I'm using it, where I'm using it, without you giving the feeling that it's a black box that you're looking at? Because right now we see a lot of AI that we really don't know what's and how it's being used. So it's a black box. You don't know. You just don't know. And the other thing is, if you look at accountability, and here comes the cool part, right? Who of you have a Tesla? Tesla? No, not many Teslas, I want. Oh, well, self-driving car. Who has got a self-driving car? Just go away from the Tesla then. Oh, not much. So the thing is, it's all about accountability. It's not only about cars, right? So we think mostly when we talk about accountability in AI, we talk about cars, right? When a car does something stupid, and it hits a pedestrian, who, what, why, it's about accountability and safety. So that's a challenge. But what about if you talk about accountability and safety when it comes to healthcare? Because more and more AI is used in healthcare to be, helping you out, making sure that you get the right medication. What if it goes wrong there? Who is then accountable? What about our safety? So they're pretty close together how you look at those. And then of course security. With security experts here in the room, you want to use AI, right? You saw the AI assistant, I worked with it. It's so cool. You really dive into it. You type in your question, you get an answer back. And to be honest, if I look at it today, and then I go back in time, when my time at IBM, when we tried to get an answer from Watson, we were so proud that it gives a little bit of an answer, and it was not in the way I see it today. And if I see it today, I get an answer like, yeah, that's something that I can use. This is making my life as a security analyst, tier 1 and tier 2, much more, easier. At the end, I'm still responsible for the action, but it makes my life much easier. So for security, I think we're making good progress. And then environmental impact. The thing though is, it will use a lot of, capabilities of our data centers. We need to make sure that we are able to calculate all the data. So are we aware that when we using AI, that we do it in a responsible way when it comes to the environmental impact? And I don't believe we all are aware that it does have an impact on that. But we need to balance it out. But it is an important component for us as well. So then you say, okay, and what about KPN? Well, you know our cat, right? If you're the Netherlands, you know our cat Louis, right? Who doesn't know our cat Louis from KPN, right? And the cat is there, and in the beginning the cat was just making sure that we all are connected to the fiber connections. And the cat was dancing and stuff. There was a lot of AI in there to make the cat dance though, because he was a bit the cat didn't want to dance itself, so we need to do some work on it. But the thing is, for us, we don't want to hide and say AI, should we do something with it? AI for us is really important. The thing is with AI, for KPN, it's like, how do we want to use AI? So we started with, a responsible AI policy. The thing is, we need to make sure that all our employees understand how to use AI, what the implications are, and how to make sure that we don't cross any privacy or regulation that is out there. Because we don't want to, misuse it in a way that we are jeopardizing your safety or your privacy. So we really are, we've written a responsible AI policy, and that's really important to make sure that we do it in the right way. Then Gen AI awareness. I think it was already mentioned. It can hallucinate. It can give you really crazy answers if you don't have the right data in there. And we are testing it today, and on our documents, and making sure that when you have an issue with our services, and you try to get an answer, what is it's giving you back? So we are now testing that in separate environments, making sure that the search and the AI tools are working how it should be, and that's a challenge, because sometimes it really gets you like an answer like how, what, why. So yeah, you need to be aware, and people are really aware and getting trained on how to use it, where to use it, where not to use it. So that's really an important thing. And then you think energy savings, here he comes again. No, energy savings here means that we already used it to look at our 15,000 cell towers. And what we do with AI is we looked at the cell towers and looked at the model, where and when did it use the most data? So we can balance out, how we're going to use the energy of our cell towers, and to making sure that we can lower the cost there. And AI did a great job And we managed by using AI to lower our cost in the energy when it comes to our cell towers. So what about the future? I think the future is bright when it comes to AI. The thing though is, we are really diving into a lot of these topics. We are in healthcare. KPN Health is really diving into healthcare in a way that we are supporting AI in that perspective as well. I think it has a bright future. It can help doctors to be more and more accurate. It can help us in generating new medicine and also looking at, the way we might even, prevent diseases for, becoming more and more dangerous. Also autonomous systems. Autonomous systems is for us really important as well. We look at 5G when it comes to private 5G. We look at the cars, we look at all the connectivity that we are providing in the Netherlands. So for us, making sure that that's secure and also supported by AI is for us really an investment that we're doing. The conversation is all about if you, for whatever reason, your connectivity is not working and you're trying to contact us, that we are really in the conversational part making progress as well and you get the right help. The challenge though is with education. And we had a wonderful discussion last night with the team here of Elastic on education. Because is AI going to teach your children everything? Or is AI just a part? Because there's still a lot of human, interface needed. We cannot give our children all by AI. You and I are a really important component in there as well. I know for sure that if you are a teacher and you don't get it, you say to the children, just Google it, right? Just Google it. But the thing is, it will help our children, but there are things that we need to teach them. So that's where we think education can help us to a certain degree, but we as a human should be really, helping and understanding how to use AI and how the kids are using the internet today. And if I really want to round it up, and I'm a techie guy, so you know who this is, right? The thing is, do or do not, there is no try. And I think for me that's really, really important. Use it wisely. Get the information from the expert. Get trained by the expert. Work together today with the expert. Making sure you know what they're doing, making sure that you learn from your peers here in the audience. Or you're going to use it, or you don't. But there's nothing in between, because if you're not doing it in the right way, it will go wrong. Thank you. So maybe if there are questions, are there questions that people want to ask? Because we still got a couple of minutes. And if there are people like, I really want to know, that now is your chance. If there's not, also fine by me, but just want to give you the opportunity if you have a question. If there's no question, I believe then we should go for a drink or coffee or a break. No questions? I will be here today. If you have a question in person, just let me know. And thank you for being